So, the topic is design build services and contract documentation, hosted by UAP and Chapter. And this is always the question, no? Who's responsible for this mess? So, nagtuturuan sa construction. Will that be the owner, the general contractor, the architect, or the subcontractor? So, majority, sinasabi nila design and build na lang para wala ng turuan sa liability and responsibility kung sino nagko-cause ng delay, no? Because the majority of disputes that was submitted to CIAC for arbitration is usually on who causes the delay of the construction. If not the delay, it is of the non-payment of the progress billing, either by the owner or the owner representative or the architect. So, to start with my discussion, this is the first question. Gumalaw ba yung slides?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Kasi minsan sa speaker gumagalaw yung slides pero sa viewers hindi, no? Okay, so the first question is that presently, are you engaging into design build services? And how do you look up yourselves? Do you engage in the design build services as an architect? Or you engage in the design and build architect as a contractor in design and build? Well, maraming nagkakamali rito, and many of the architects is not really practicing design and build as provided in our UAP document 207. Many of the architects practice design and build as a contractor. So, dito natin lilinawin ngayon, ano ba talaga ang sinasabing design build services ng isang architect as provided in our UAP document 207. Okay? So, under RA 9266, there is a question on whether the architect is allowed to build or to construct buildings. In the definition of architecture in RA 9266 section 3 number 1, the definition of architecture is the art, science, or profession of planning, designing, and constructing buildings in their totality. So, malinaw sa definition that there is the word constructing buildings, but later on we should realize, will that word constructing buildings tantamount to contracting per se? Okay, because in the definition of architect of record, under RA 9266, the architect of record means that the architect registered and licensed under this act who is directly and professionally responsible for the total design of the project and assume the civil liability for the plans, specifications, and contract documents he or she is signed and sealed. In the architect record, there is no mention of constructing or about construction. The role of an architect as an architect of record is mainly for the preparation of design plans and specifications for the project. While in the definition of architect in charge of construction, it says that means an architect registered and licensed under this act who is directly and professionally responsible and liable for the construction supervision of the project. So take note of the definitions of the two, that being an architect of record, you are only within the limits of the preparation of the design plans and specifications. While being an architect in charge of construction, you are limit only for supervision and not for contracting per se. Okay? If you're going to read the scope and practice of architecture, or the general practice of architecture enumerated in Article 1, Section 3, Number 3, and Number 4 of RA 9266, although there is mention of the word construction, the connotation of the word construction is not contracting per se. Okay? The connotation in the word construction is that the architect is allowed to manage construction in behalf of the client and not of being a contractor. No? Kaya pag tinignan natin ang ating RA 9266, we are not really allowed into contracting. No? The design and build services provided in our law is not really a contracting per se. No? But it is a construction representing the client to the project. Let us read now the definition of a contractor under RA 4566. No? So RA 4566 is an act creating the Philippine License Board for Contractors and prescribing its powers, duties, and functions, providing funds therefore and for other purposes. Ito yung PCAB. Ito yung agency na nag-i-issue ng Philippine Contractors Accreditation. So, sila rin yung nag-accredit ng mga contractor. So, the definition of contractor is deemed synonymous with the term builder. And hence, any person, either natural or juridical, who undertakes or offers to undertake or purports to have the capacity to undertake or submits a bid to or does himself or by it through orders, construct, alter, repair, add, subtract, improve, move, etc. That is in the connotation of being a contractor. So there is a difference between an architect and at the same time a contractor per se. Under Section 14 of the same law, although it provides that architects and engineers under this act, the issuance of the PCAB certification does not apply because architects and engineers usually exercising in their professional capacity. But there is a question here. How can you define and how can you distinguish that an architect is exercising solely in his professional capacity different with being a contractor? So that's the difference. Kasi pag later on the architect lalabas that he is not really exercising acting in his professional capacity, then that will be tantamount to a contracting per se, which is engaged in the business of construction. Now you will be allowed now to secure a PCAB license. Okay? Ang hindi lang na hinihinga ng PCAB license if the architect or engineer is exercising or acting in this sole or in his or her sole professional capacity. So ano yon? Okay, so papasok tayo ngayon dito sa Architects Code of Professional Practice. Mayroon lang dalawa sa ating code for an architect to be engaged in design build services. Dalawa lang. It is design build services by administration and design build services by a guaranteed maximum cost. Pagka hindi ka na within that framework, you are now engaged in a contracting per se. Contractor na ang labas ng isang arkitekto. Okay? Para malinaw lang. Okay? So ano itong design build services by administration and ano itong design build services by a guaranteed maximum cost? So, sa comparative analysis, ito yung makikita natin. No? Design build in the practice of architecture profession is only limits to two aspects, which is design build by administration and design build in guaranteed maximum cost or guaranteed maximum price. While an architect or engineer engaged in the business of contracting as a contractor, they can exercise the different methods, the different delivery methods of constructing. Like for example, a contractor can be engaged in a fixed lump sum contract. A contractor can be engaged in a unit price contract. A contractor can be engaged in a cost plus contract. And the contractor can be engaged in an incentive contract. The same that a contractor can engage in a guaranteed maximum price and design and build contract, prime cost contract, provisional sums, nominated subcontract, supply and delivery contract, build, operate, transfer contract, private and public partnership contract. While an architect in the practice of this profession cannot be engaged in that kinds of contracting. No. So maraming arkitekto that works in the engagement of being a contractor and not an architect. Okay, so titingnan natin ano ba ay sinasabi ng design build contract by administration and design build in a guaranteed maximum cost. So let's discuss design build by administration. Ito ang sinasabi ng ating design build administration. When the project is constructed under the direct and sole responsibility of the architect, ito na ngayon ang sinasabi natin, no? That when an architect exercising in his sole responsibility or professional capacity na sinasabi doon sa section 14 kanina ng RA 4566 para hindi i-require si architect ng PCAB, ito dapat ang i-execute ni architect as design and build contract. And ano itong design and build contract sa ating kliyente by administration? It is the architect who prepares a schedule of work. Of course, ginagawa rin yan sa construction per se, construction program, estimate and bill of materials, labor, plans, equipment, and services. So, we are also preparing the documents for the client of this enumerated in Section 2.1 of UAP Document 207. And it is the architect who hires construction personnel and designates duties and remunerations thereof. Arkitekto yung nagpapasahod, okay? Arkitekto yung nag-negotiate and enters into contract with piecework contractors and evaluates work accomplishment. And it is also the architect who procure materials, plans, and equipment, including licenses and permits. It is also the architect who authorizes payments of account. Take note of the word. The architect is only authorized payments of accounts. The architect is the one who keeps records and books of accounts, negotiates with government agencies having jurisdiction over the project, manages all business of construction, and in this regard, all cost of labor and materials are paid directly by the client. Ibig sabihin, hindi talaga nangungontrata si architect sa design build by administration. Nagdi-design si architect, pinapatayo ng kliyente, represented by the architect. Yun ang sinasabi nating design build by administration. The architect does not execute a contract agreement with the owner for the construction of the work. Walang kontrata si arkitekto, no? Ang kontrata ng arkitekto, design and contract administration. Yun ang sinasabi natin design build by administration, because the contract of the architect is to design and to build by administration. Administrador ng kliyente si arkitekto. Kaya nga sinasabi sa ating design build by administration, the client is the one who paid the payroll. The client is the one who paid all the expenses. The client is the one who paid all procurement of materials. And all receipts shall be in the name of the owner and not of the name of the architect. Bakit? Hindi ito sa arkitekto. It is for the owner. It is only the architect who supervises or administer the work in behalf of the owner. In that aspect, babayaran si arkitekto ng 10%, 7% rather. Okay? Rather, ang architect's fee na architect dito sa administration is 7%. in addition to his or her design fees. So kung halimbawa, sumingil si architect ng 10% sa kanyang design fee, plus 7% for administration, that will be 17% all in all, the fee of the architect. Yun ang role natin sa design build by administration. Ngayon, may sinasabi dyan, although the architect may prepare a detailed cost estimate of the project, the estimate may be guaranteed only on a range of 10% plus or minus the stated estimate. What do we mean by this? Okay? Si architect, pag nag-prepare ng estimate, pag natapos yung project, kailangan plus or minus lang ang lapses na architect. Either yung estimated sum is beyond with that project cost completed or below the project cost completed, but it should be not to exceed 10% and not to lower 10%. That is the reasonable factor, no, na dapat ay hindi lalagpas si architect dyan. Kaya kailangan si arkitekto ay masinop, no, sa paggawa ng kanyang estimated cost, no, dahil pagka yan ay lumobo later on, doon ka ngayon magkakaroon ng liability sa owner on the damages because of the excess of the cost na hindi na consider ni architect. That is design build by administration. So, ang role ng architect under UAP document 207 is design build by administration. So, you have to design with the client and you have to administer your design for the client to execute the works and not really a contracting person. Maraming mga arkitekto na nag-i-engage, no, in a construction business. Sinasabi nila, design and build yan, no? Ako magdi-design, ako ang mangungontrata, then that is not the tenor of our UAP document 207, no? Hindi yan nature ng isang arkitekto, no? Kung makakausap mo nga yung mga ibang architects ng mga batatanda noon, sinasabi nila, it is very impractical for the architect to contract his own design, dahil nawawala ang check and balance, nawawala yung quality of works, no, nawawala yung supervision na talagang makikita ng kliyente that the contractor will, the architect will perform freely in his capacity with good quality dahil contractor na at the same time sa architect. So there's only two, no? This is the first one, the design build by administration. And the other one is the design build in a guaranteed maximum cost. So, ano itong guaranteed maximum cost? So, sa guaranteed maximum cost, it is the same with the design build by administration. Ang pagkakaiba lang dito, sa design build by guaranteed maximum cost, nangako ka sa kliyente na yung project niya is talagang hanggang dito lang yung maximum, hindi na lalagpas sa maximum estimated cost. And suppose lumagpas ang project in that guaranteed maximum cost, liable ngayon si architect. Itong sinasabi under 3.5, if the guaranteed maximum cost is exceeded by not more than 10%, it is divided equally between the client and the architect. However, if the excess is more than 10%, the architect pays for all extra cost in excess of the 10%. Sa guaranteed maximum cost, pag mayroong savings, it is divided equally, no, between the architect and the client. So, yan yung magiging profit ni architect and the client. While, pagka sumobra ang cost ng project doon sa guaranteed maximum estimate na sinabit ni architect, the architect now will bear the cost of the excess of that guaranteed maximum price. But the same aspect with the design build by administration, the same ang responsibility ng architect, and it is still the client that will shoulder all the cost of all expenses, no? Hindi dito naglalabas ng pera yung arkitekto, it is the client who assumes all responsibilities and liabilities in all cost, no, of the project. So what is the role of the architect here? The architect is only exercising in a fiduciary capacity. No? Hindi yan pera ng arkitekto, hindi yan kontrata ng arkitekto. Pagdating sa fee ng design build services on a guaranteed maximum cost, the fee of the architect is 10% in addition to his design fee. So kung ang design fee ng architect sa design is 10%, 20% in total as an add-on doon sa kanyang administration of the project. While ang kanina, by administration, 7%. No? In the old standard of professional fees, ang nakalagay doon is, that is the maximum fee by the architect to be charged with the owner. But in the present 2010 standard of professional fees, the one that is mentioned now in the code is recommended professional fees. Recommended. Ibig sabihin, kung 7% yan, pagka hindi sinunod ng arkitekto yung 7%, there is no violations of the Code of Ethics. If the architect does not follow the 10% recommended, there is no violation of the Code of Ethics. Bakit? Recommended fee yun. You have the discretion to follow or not. Okay? While in the old code, nakalagay doon, that is your maximum fee. Hindi ka na lalabas o hindi ka natataas ng 7%, hindi ka natataas ng 10%. While in the present 2010 standard of professional fees, the fee is recommended. Recommended yung 7%. So either you will charge the client lower than that or you will charge the client higher than that, depending on the complexity of the work, depending on the complexity of the methodology of the project, depending on the complexity of the project itself. So yun ang sinasabi ng ating standard of professional fees in 2010 in comparison with the standard fees in the 1979. In 1979, pag nakita ninyo doon, pag binasa ninyo, it is minimum standard. Hindi ka na bababa rito. No? And may mga portions that these are the only maximum, but majority, that is the minimum standard fees to be charged with the architect. In the present, it is now recommendable. No? So the architect is not precluded to absolutely charge what is percentage provided in the standard of professional fees. Kaya pag nakikita ninyo dyan, magtataka kayo, bakit sobrang baba yung charge ni architect? Kasi hindi nyo sinunod yung standard fees na sinasabi natin, because that is only a recommended fees. And the architect now has the discretion whether to follow or not to follow that recommended professional fees. Okay, advantages and disadvantages of this different delivery method. Under UAP document 207, these are the advantage. You have your design fee plus build fee by administration, and that is your architect's fee. So if you have the design fee of 10% and by administration you have 7%, your fee now is 17%. In design build by a guaranteed maximum cost, if you have your design fee of 10% and you have the administration fee of 10%, then your fee, your architect's fee, is now in a total of 20% of the estimated cost. Take note again of the word in the contract. No? Kasi pwede sabihin nyo na yung architect's fee is based on the estimated cost submitted by the architect. You know, there is one case, that case, I forgot the name of the case, that the architect submitted or provided in their contract that their fee is based on the actual construction cost. Eh, nagkaroon ng change order, nagkaroon ng additional amount doon sa estimated cost. Nag-claim yung architect, no? And sinabi ng owner, hindi ka pwede mag-claim kasi wala ka namang ginawa nung nagkaroon na ng change order. Eh, bakit ka mag-claim ng additional percentage based doon sa additional amount? Ano sabi ng Supreme Court sa case? Malinaw sa kontrata na ang basihan ng architect's fee is based on the final construction cost and not on the estimated cost provided by the architect before construction. So nabayaran yung architect doon sa kanyang additional fee because that was based on the actual construction cost of the project and not on the submitted estimated cost. So you have to take note, no, when you make a contract later on, whether your fee will be based on the architect's estimated, or that will be based on the resulting actual construction cost. Okay? So the advantage for the UAP document 207 compared doon sa regular design plus build contracting is that the fee of the architect in UAP document 201 or 207 is fixed fee in addition to design fee. Naka-fix na ang iyong singil sa kliyente. Okay? And there is no employer-employee relation because the architect is only acting as an agent of the principal or the owner. Wala kayong employer relationship na mga workers. The workers and the owner has the employer-employee relationship. Dahil nga agent lang ng owner si architect. All expenses are directly paid by the owner through the architect. And there is no constructing contract or construction contract between principal or the owner and the architect. Wala kayong direct contract with the owner being a contractor. And the architect is not prone to liquidated damages in the event of delay. Dahil agent lang siya ng owner at hindi siya contractor. So, hindi ka prone sa liquidated damages. And the architect also walang bonds and insurances. Hindi ka magsasubmit ng bonds dahil hindi ka contractor and you are an agent of the owner. Okay? So, kung binibigyan ka man ng pera ng owner, pambayad, pang purchase ng materials, hindi mo pera yon. You are only acting in a fiduciary capacity in behalf of the owner. While in the regular design and build contracting, like those in the contractor, there is a design fee plus a build cost that will be the contractor's fee, with contractor's profit. The disadvantage for the contractor is that it can be winning or losing depending on the performance of the project. So pag tinignan ninyo, mas maganda ang sinasabi ng ating UAP document 207. Bakit? Hindi ka nag-after ng profit doon. Because your fee is fixed as administration fee. While in a regular contracting, you're acting for the profit. Either sisingil ka ng basic design fee mo, but during construction, you are submitting to the owner with a profit built in to the submitted cost. Pag natalo ang iyong performance sa project, nagkaroon ka ng delay, nagkaroon ka ng problema, either kakainin ng delay ang iyong profit, yung profit margin mo. While in UAP document 207, naka-fix yun dahil you are only administering the project in behalf of the owner. While in contracting, pwede kang matalo, pwede ka rin manalo, but the same profit margin, kasi ang profit margin naman natin in contracting is either 10 to 15%, as provided in the instruction to bidders pag sumali kayo sa mga bidding. And there is an employer-employee relation between workers and the contractor. So, prone ka palagi sa complaint sa labor. While in UAP document 207, hindi ka prone to complaint for the dole. Kasi ang i-complaint palagi doon is the owner. Because the owner is the principal and the architect is only an agent who administer the project. And all expenses paid by the contractor, and not by the owner, dahil si contractor nagbibill sa owner ng accomplishment and the contractor will pay his or her employees. And the contractor can be prone to liquidated damages. In case of delay, at hindi niya natapos ang project on time based on the completion date required by the contract, he can be charged of liquidated damages, which is in practice, that is 1/10 of 1%, but not to exceed 10% of the project cost. And of course, the contractor, if you're an architect or an engineer engaged in irregular contracting, you have to submit all necessary bonds and insurances. Bonds, like for example, you have to submit surety bonds for the advance payment. You have to submit contractor's all risk insurance. You have to submit a warranty certificate after completion of the project, and you can get your retention money after the completion or after the acceptance of the project or after the defects liability period, as the case may be. Sa UAP document 207, being an administrator of the owner, wala kang retention doon dahil naka-fix ang fee mo sa owner, equivalent either 7% or 10%. So talagang kita ang arkitekto doon compared dito sa regular contracting. Pero nami-mislead ng karamihang mga arkitekto. Ang ginagawa ng mga arkitekto, they are submitting design with the owner and they are executing regular construction contract with the owner. Sinasabi pa nga minsan libre na yung design and they will just execute a regular construction contract with the owner. So hindi ba ninyo alam that that is mostly disadvantageous to the part of the architect rather than going to UAP document 207 as really the design build allowed under the profession of architecture. Okay, the nature of design build contract under UAP document 207, our design build by administration, and design build in the guaranteed maximum cost is a contract of agency under Article 1868 to 1932 of the new Civil Code of the Philippines. So agent ang nature ng kontrata natin sa kliyente and not a construction or a regular construction contract. So the nature of architect's duty is only in a fiduciary capacity. Administrador, ang perang binibigay sa atin ng owner for the purchase of materials, hindi natin kailangan pagkakakitaan dahil hindi natin pera yon at pera yon ng kliyente. Dahil naka-fix na ang ating fee doon sa administration, which is 7%, or if it is in a guaranteed maximum price, our fee to the administration is 10% in addition to our design fees. So under Article 1317 of the new Civil Code, no one may contract in the name of another dahil we are an administrator of the owner and we are not the contractor of the owner. Nakalagay dito that a contract entered into in the name of another by one who has no authority or legal representation or has acted beyond his power shall be unenforceable. So kailangan meron tayong authority from the owner to enter into contract dahil kung kukuha tayo ng mga piecemeal contractor to do the works later on, we have to execute also a contract with him in behalf of the owner. And of course, since that we are acting in behalf of the owner, we should have an authorization from the owner. That is why usually if we are executing a contract with the owner in design build contract by administration or design build contract by a guaranteed maximum cost, we need for us for a special power of attorney which is necessary under the Civil Code to compromise, to submit questions to arbitration, to renounce the right to appeal from judgment, to waive objections to the venue of action, or to abandon a prescription already acquired. Dahil pag nag-execute tayo ng kontrata sa mga subcontractors, mayroong arbitration clause ang kontrata na in-execute natin in behalf of the owner. We have need to be given a special power of attorney from the owner for us to compromise and to submit arbitration later on in case of disputes, and to ratify or recognize obligations contracted before the agency. So kailangan meron tayong authorization, which is usually done in the special power of attorney. Okay, so the employment status of workers in a design build by administration, since na that is directly with the owner, you have to execute either make them a project employment, not a labor only contracting, kasi hindi pwede under the labor code ang labor only contracting. Paano pag sinasabi natin labor only contracting? Yun yung mga kinukuha natin sa mga manpower agency para mag-provide ng tao. Bawal yon under the labor code. That is called labor only contracting. Pag fixed term naman, pag fixed term kasi pag ni-rehire yung isang empleyado, magiging regular, no, ang magiging employment niya, no, in every fixed term na nirenew. So what we use in construction usually is a project employment contract. So naka-specific lang for that project, and after that you have to terminate his employment pag tapos na yung specific project. So doon tayo safe sa labor because he's only employed, no, in a specific project and governed by the project employment service agreement. Okay, so that's the essence of the design build contract by administration and design build contract in a guaranteed maximum price in vis-a-vis to irregular contracting. Now, let us review contract template, no? Paano ba tayo gumawa ng kontrata later on, no? I-run down natin. Okay, in drafting a contract, you can see this kind of template. Okay? And this kind of template, makikita nyo dyan yung heading, no? Yung pinakauna dyan makikita niyo yung title, no? And then yung heading and the recital, no? So the recital says that this agreement made and entered into this 19th day of December year 2020 by and between the architect and the owner, or architect and the contractor. Ngayon, if it is with the design contract, it is with between the owner and the architect. Pero kung ikaw ay representing the owner as an agent of the owner, dapat magiging tripartite ang agreement, no? Either nakalagay dyan that this agreement made and entered into this day of by and between, nakalagay dyan the owner, no, as the principal, and the architect being an agent of the owner, for example. Okay, so yun ang magiging tenor ng kontrata doon sa contract by administration, no? If you are not only in design, no? If you are in design by administration, you have to specify in the contract that you are the architect for design, and at the same time you are an agent of the owner during the administration of the construction work. Otherwise, lalabas that you are a contractor per se rather than design build by administration under UAP document 207. Okay, so that's the recital. Then after the recital, you have your scope of works, no? You lay down your scope of works, which is that is the description of the contract, and you have the object of the contract. What are those services to be rendered? Now, for example, in the design, you have your project definition phase, you have your schematic design phase, and you have your design development phase. If you are going to go over with the process of the preparation of design. But there were contracts usually na hindi na lumalabas itong mga schematic designs, no? And they just go directly with those scope of works that they are needing to provide with the owner. Ito yung mga schematics design, medyo hindi rin nasusunod na sa actual practice yung process. And then, usually, in design build under UAP document 207, hindi ito nasusunod yung bidding or negotiation phase. Walang bidding and negotiation phase under UAP document 207 because your function is an administrator or an agent of the owner. This bidding and the preparation of bid documents, no, will only be used if you are an architect of the owner and you are not exercising in your professional capacity to engage in design build by administration. But an owner's construction manager, for example, or an owner's project superintendent, din ma-apply ngayon itong provisions ng bidding or negotiation phase and the construction phase, which is the preparation of the change orders, no, determination of payments for the contractors, no. But if you are engaged in the design and build by administration or a guaranteed maximum cost, this bidding, negotiation, and the approval of change orders will be eliminated in the contract. Bakit? All in yan, no, ang trabaho mo doon. Walang change order na makiklaim sa owner unless mayroong changes, na major changes in the design, at sinasabi natin sa ating design description na pag nagbago yung design at there is a need for an architect to use his office and staff for the revision of that plans, no, or the revisions of the spaces, then that will be a change order on the design of the architect and not included on the administration, because administration follows to the design rendered by the architect. So hindi masusunod, no, itong bidding, negotiation, and hindi rin masusunod itong construction phase, but you have to provide here your scope in the administration of the project, being a contracts administrator or an architect administrator. And then you have your cost and consideration, no? Yung architect's manner of payment, paano ka babayaran, no? You have to lay down with the owner kung paano ka babayaran. Majority of the architects do not accept or do not provide in their contract an acceptance fee. But for me, I usually provide in my contract that I am accepting fees before I do the work, no? Acceptance fee yun. Kasi kung sinasabi natin dyan that you have to execute this agreement, walang bayad, and then later on, nag-provide ka ng schematic design, for example, within 15 days after submission saka palang babayaran, paano pag hindi ka binayaran? So, magkakaproblema ka sa kliyente, magkakaroon na kayo ng dispute. So, usually, I do charging muna ng fees before I render services. Okay, so that's what I'm doing. So, these are the cost and consideration of the contract, no? Yung fees, schedule of payment, and then the next will be the owner's obligation. No? You have to lay down what are the owner's obligations to be rendered to the architect. So kung ikaw ay engaged in the administration, you have to clear it in your contract that the owner's obligations is to pay, no, directly the wages and salaries of the workers upon determination and recommendation of the architect, for example. So you have to lay down it in the contract. And then you have your arbitration clause. So usually arbitration clause is whenever there is dispute, no, between the architect and the owner, but in a small project usually mas maganda naman yung ad hoc arbitration. Pag sinasabi natin ad hoc arbitration, we are not submitting it, for example, to an institution like CIAC, and you will just hire your arbitrator, common arbitrator between an architect and the owner to settle disputes, no? Kasi kung dadaan pa yan ng institutional arbitration like CIAC, PDRCI, merong arbitration fees, no? And you will be hiring counsels, no, to submit your disputes. So kung maliit lang naman yung project, bahay-bahay lang yung mga project, the owner may resort, and the architect may resort to an ad hoc arbitration. Ibig sabihin, hindi siya isa-submit sa isang institution, no? Pipili na lang kayo ng person to decide, and ilalagay sa agreement that the decision of arbitrator is binding with the owner, and the owner and the architect shall follow the decision of the arbitrator. And then yun yung mga remedy clause natin, no? And importante rin yung successors. You are being an agent of the owner, kailangan nandito itong successors and assigns, no? Kasi yung purpose ito is that pag namatay yung owner, binding dapat sa kanyang successors and assigns. So kung private owner yan, hindi korporasyon, and namatay siya, nakalagay dyan that binding, for example, sa kanyang family members, sa husband niya, no? So next of kin, no, partners, and the same with the architect, no? Kung namatay yung arkitekto, binding din doon sa partner ng isang arkitekto. Ang problema doon, pag sole practice yung arkitekto, no? Kasi pag sole practice yung arkitekto, the architect cannot bind his family members who are not architects or engineers, no, to be liable. Bakit? They are not engaged in the practice of profession. So talagang walang laban ang kliyente doon. Okay, so napaka-importante yung provisions ng successors and assigns. Okay, and then you have your remedy clause, which is yung arbitration. Majority, if you are going to resort to consult a lawyer, ang gagawin ng lawyer dyan is they will provide litigation clause, not an arbitration clause. Bakit? What is the purpose, no? Pag litigation clause, ang submission sa regular court. Kaya alam naman natin, pag regular court, matagal. Aabutin ka ng 5 taon bago mag-decide yung korte. While in arbitration, if that is an institutionalized arbitration, the arbitrators will only decide in a maximum of 6 months. No, kasi pagka lumagpas ng 6 months, ma-administrative kami na pagka hindi kami nakapag-render ng aming decision. Pero pag regular court yan, syempre, every time na may appearance yung lawyers, magbabayad ka sa abogado. So, gusto-gusto ng mga lawyers yan dahil matagal ang kaso. Every time na may hearing and preparation ng documents, may bayad sa abogado. So, doon kumikita yung mga abogado. Okay? So, yan. And we have the consent clause. No? Pag sinabing consent clause, ito na yung nagpermahan kayo. No? And once nagpermahan kayo, ibig sabihin, you give your consent to be binding with all the stipulations in the agreement. Okay? So you signed, the owner signed, the architect signed, and then signed also by the witnesses. No? And then after that, notarized by a lawyer to become a public instrument. No? Ang common question palagi sa akin is, sir, paano pagka hindi notarized? Is the contract invalid or unenforceable? No, the contract is valid. No? Private contract nga lang. No one will testify later on except your witnesses. No? So kung meron ng third party, for example, to justify that the contract is genuine, no? That all the stipulations is not forged, no? Is not by force, by intimidation, by threat, by coercion. Nobody will testify that, no? Kasi kung may notary public, ibig sabihin your consent, no? Your giving of consent is pumunta kayo doon sa notary public and sinabi nyo doon that it is our free will and deed. No? Talagang kusang loob namin pumunta dyan at kusang loob kaming nag-usap na magkaroon kami ng kontrata for this purpose. Okay? So later on, ang i-question sa court to determine the validity is the notary public. Kaya nga ina-advise ko palagi, do not notarize your document doon sa mga gilid-gilid na nagnotaryo. No? Kasi hindi nyo alam may abogado ba o wala. No? Sa recto, dito marami yan, no? Ng mga nagnotaryo na wala na mga abogado. Later on, pag nagkaroon kayo ng problema at tinawag sa korte yan, pag tinawag yung abogado, patay na pala yung abogado, pero may nagnotaryo. So let your document notarize for those lawyers na may opisina. No? Para sigurado kayo that the one who notarized is a legitimate practitioner and a legitimate commission by the court, no, to notarize documents. And later on, pwede nyo tawagin, no, sa court and mag-testify, no, that alam niya na nag-execute kayo ng inyong kontrata. Okay? Here's another contract. I prepared it for one of the client, no. Kung kanina nakikita natin dito is pinakita ko yung simpleng provisions ng kontrata and the description, no, of the different types of the body of the agreement. Ito ngayon is the agreement prepared for the owner. This agreement is not design build by administration but design and construction per se. No? And usually, pag makikita ninyo at mababasa niyo yung kontratang ito, it is usually favorable to the owner. Siyempre, if the owner will hire us to prepare a template with them, we will see to it that it should be favorable to the owner, no? And it is not for the neutral of the parties. No? So it is now the duty of the architect or the engineers, for example, to review the agreement and comment and rephrase the provisions that you think unfair or discriminatory, for example, on your part. Otherwise, if you will just sign the documents prepared by the owner, you have to assume responsibility that you accept all the terms and conditions on the contract. So this is an architectural works, including fit-out works, no, and other engineering services. So the same, we have the body of the agreement, we have the recital, and then this works ought to be executed by the architect, and then the agreement of the parties, no, and the definition. So pag makita ninyo, ang daming nakalagay na mga provisions. Now, provisions in the architect services, for example, you have to be you have to avoid some wordings, no? Pag makikita ninyo, for example, sa kontrata later on, no, na nakalagay diyan na like for example ito, all services necessary. Usually, pag may mga wordings na yan that all services necessary, kung ako yung magre-review ng kontrata in behalf of the architect, magko-comment ako that I will remove the word all services necessary. If I will be the architect at the same time a contractor, I will replace this, no, to become neutral. Kasi kung sinabing all services necessary and you are not going to define and enumerate what are those services that you only need to serve, catch all provision to, no, kahit hindi mo na ilista, hanapin sa iyo ng kliyente. Okay. Of that wordings, no? So and then we have architect's obligation and the client obligation, no? So situate na talagang clear, no, between parties ang inyong obligation. Now, liquidated damages, kung makikita ninyo, this is more important, no, to the architects. Kasi karamihan sa kontrata hindi nakakakita ng liquidated damages sa design. Ang karamihan nakikita nila yung liquidated damages is only in the construction phase. But take note here, no? Sinasabi ko diyan sa kontratang yan, no? Liquidated damages of delay shall be 2% of the total fees payable to the architect for each work of delay beyond stated completion date of the committed deliverables in stated Annex B. Ang liquidated damages ito is liquidated damages in the submission of architect's deliverables sa drawings niya. It is not for the construction pa, no? So siguro magtataka kayo, no? Bakit pwede pa lang may LD ang architect? Yes, if it is stated in the contract, no, pagka hindi mo na-submit ang iyong deliverables, may LD ka, no? So dito is 2% kasi maliit lang naman yung fee ng architect compare sa construction amount, no? Kaya sa construction amount is only 1/10 of 1% dahil malaki, no, million ang amount ng construction compare sa architect's services naman. So 2% naman of the total fees of the architect. The question here is that saan ba magsisimula ang aking determination ng LD, no? Kasi siyempre maraming revisions ng owner during the preliminary phase, no, during the schematic phase, na marami pang revision ng owner, baka doon ma-delay. Okay, so kung ako naman yung architect, I would comment that the counting of my commencement on the preparation of my deliverables should be on the time that the owner already approved all the necessary sketches, the necessary design development, that it is now for the production of the complete working drawings. Doon magko-commence, no, ang iyong start ng deliverables until such time na magkakaroon ng date of submission, and doon pala mag-charge ng liquidated damages of 2%. Although seldom ito, no, na makikita natin sa mga architects owner services, no, dahil usually pag architect yung nag-prepare, hindi ninyo makikita ito dahil yung template natin wala to, no? May favorable naman yun sa mga architects. But of course, being hired by the owner, for example, to prepare a document favorable to the owner, siyempre kung ako, lalagay ko yung kontrata ng owner for liquidated damages on the delayed submission of the architect of his deliverable. So you have to make it neutral then, no? So pag nag-comment kayo. Okay? Next, compensation and billing, kailangan malinaw din kung paano kayo maniningil sa design and paano kayo maniningil sa inyong administration phase. Okay? Okay, here. So, you have to specify in your contract also, kung administrador kayo, you have to specify in the contract that there is no employer-employee relation exists between an employee of the architect, since that the architect is only exercising as an agent of the owner. The employer-employee relationship should be between the owner and the employee, and not between an employee of the architect. Okay, so you have to see to it. Subconsultants, this is for construction, no? For design build administration, hindi naman natin ito na-apply. Compliance with laws, and then of course confidentiality and secrecy nire-require na ito ngayon because of the Anti-Privacy Act, no? So usually nag-execute tayo ng contract with the owner that in whatever nature we should not disclose, no, any personal details, no, especially if it is confidential on the part of the owner. Mangangako tayo that we should not disclose it. So basic na ngayon yan in all contracts. Okay, and then insurances, if we are an architect engaged in design build by administration or design build in a guaranteed maximum cost under UAP document 207, yung professional indemnity insurance also acceptable, no, to provide with the owner, because professional liability insurance will cover the loss of the owner's money in cases where there is errors in design of the architect. Take note, this is about errors in design of the architect. Ibig sabihin, lumabas siya dun sa drawing, but the drawing or the design is erroneous. That will affect later on to the project of the owner. But if it is, for example, lacking, no, talagang kulang yung mga detalye ng architect, so nag-suffer yung project ng additional cost, it will not be covered by a professional liability insurance, no? Ang kino-cover lang talaga doon is only errors in designs and specifications. Now, with regards to contractors' all risk insurance, we are not required to submit a contractors' all risk insurance if we execute any design and build services by administration or design and build services in a guaranteed maximum cost under UAP document 207, dahil nga agent lang tayo and we are not a contractor. But if you are a contractor per se, then you will be required now to submit both the professional liability insurance and the contractors all risk insurance as required by the owner. Of course, you have to provide the limitation of your liability and then your indemnity, no? Usually, if we are not covered by liquidated damages in the construction stage, but we can be covered by other damages, no? For example, is nagiging negligent din tayo to administer the project of the owner, being an architect engaged in the design build by administration or design build by guaranteed maximum cost. We are also prone for the damages provided in the civil code. For example, there is a humiliation on the part of the owner because the project was not completed, no, and the owner suffers mental illness. Then you can be liable for moral damages plus exemplary damages and actual and compensatory damages as provided in the civil code. Then warranties, given no ating warranties that we warrant our designs under Article 1723 of the Civil Code, that when there is a collapse of the building, and the reason for the collapse of the building, for example, is because of the errors in the plans and specifications, then the architect is liable to the owner under Article 1723 if that buildings collapse within 15-year period, no? But that 15-year period is only the waiting time if there is a collapse of the building. If there is a collapse of the building within that, for example, on that 15th year itself, doon nagkaroon ng collapse of the buildings due to errors in plans and specifications, the owner has still additional time frame to file an action, which is 10 years. So 15 plus 10, that will be 25 years na hindi ka pa makakatulog dahil baka sabihin mo nag-collapse yung building on the 15th year and hindi nag-action yung owner, no? On the 20th year hindi nag-action yung owner, no? Medyo happy ka, but on the 24th year nag-file ng action ng owner. Pwede pa ba? Yes, because the prescriptive period in filing an action extend up to 10 years from the time the collapse of the building. So kaya sinasabi natin ang ating liability 15 years plus 10 years of prescription for the owner to file action to the architect. Okay? So default and termination, nagiging problema palagi ito ng mga arkitekto, no? Na anytime is the owner terminates the services of the architect. So you have to clarify, no, in the contract the grounds for termination of the services of the architect, and at the same time, not only the grounds for termination, but the determination that you must be paid by the owner. Babayaran ng owner if there is a termination of your services. That is very important to the architect, no? Kasi maraming mga arkitekto ang hindi nakakasingil sa kliyente pag na-terminate na ng kliyente. Okay. Governing law and the dispute resolution, sinasabi ko na kanina, dispute resolution, I go with arbitration. But of course, you have to, for the big projects, for example, you have to be mindful, no, that the venue of the case or the dispute should be submitted only within the Philippine jurisdiction, no? Kasi may mga ibang kontrata na meron silang mga joint venture na foreign partners, and usually their foreign partners wants this venue of disputes, for example in Singapore, in Hong Kong, no? Kung doon ang disputes, kaya mo bang magbayad ng abogado, no? At kaya mo bang magbayad ng expenses nila, travel expenses nila and hotel going to Singapore, going to Hong Kong, no, to defend your case. So, that the disputes shall be submitted only within the jurisdictions of the Philippines, and the governing law should be covered also by these jurisdictions. Okay? Then what else? Event of force majeure. Always naman to, no? Ang event of force majeure, sinasabi natin that the owner or the architect is not liable in case of force majeure, but you have to take note, no? Dahil ngayon is allowed na yung mga virtual meetings, allowed na yung mga virtual presentations, no? Allowed na yung submission through emails. So you have to be careful din, no? Kasi baka mamaya pwede namang gawin virtually ang mga presentations for you not to cause delay. Then kailangan gamitin mo yung pag-exercise ng due diligence, no, with the owner. Okay? And then notices, napaka-importante itong notices, no, pagdating sa kontrata. Kasi ang magkakaiba ang notices kung sinong taong papadalhan mo ng mga notices. If there is queries, if there is disputes, no, and iba rin yung pumirma, no. Usually kasi pwedeng ang pumirma is the president of the company, kung company yan, and iba rin yung papadalhan ng notices, no. For example, iba yung nakalagay sa notice kasi dito ang nagkaroon ng disputes, no, at hindi mo pinadala doon sa proper person kung sino nakalagay sa notice. Pwedeng sabihin ng other party na the filing of a case is premature. Why premature? Because it was not received properly by the person na dapat siya yung mag-receive ng notices, but it was sent, for example, to those who signed the agreement. So pwedeng sabihin nila na premature yung pag-file ng case. So you have to take note of that aspect. Otherwise, madi-dismiss ang pag-file ng case later on. And of course, you have to lay down your scope of works, no, to the owner. Ano ba talaga yung gagawin mo? For example, this one, no, in the program development, ano gagawin ng arkitekto, no, in the schematic design and development, ano yung gagawin ng arkitekto, and during the tendering, for example, kung hindi yan design and build, ano yung scope of services ng arkitekto. Ngayon, kung design and build yan, ano rin yung services ng architect during the contract administration of the project. You have to lay down it, no, sa kontrata as an annexes, no, kasi later on pagka hindi mo yan enumerate, hindi mo yan na-define clearly what are the services that to be provided by the architect to the owner in his administration phase. Pag-aawayan nyo rin ng owner, no, kasi sabi ng owner, hindi, akala ko lahat yan kasama na, akala ko wala na akong problema, no, kasi yung kliyente parang ganyan yan, no. Di ba, architect, ang sabi ko is kaya ko binigay sa iyo yan dahil gusto ko, wala na akong problemahin pa, no, titira na lang ako, papasok na lang ako, no. So you have to see to it that it is clear with your contract to the owner when rendering design services by administration, no, including the formulation of the program of works to be provided to the workers, no? Kasi role yan ng isang architect sa owner with regards to design build by administration. So ikaw yung administrador, ikaw lahat ang gagalaw in behalf of the owner as if that you are the owner of the project, no? Ito yung counterpart sa international contract, sa mga big contract, no? Ito yung counterpart ng sinasabi natin na turnkey project, no? Si owner execute ng design and build sa kayo architect by administration, and bahala ni si architect mag-administer ng project, and then later on ito turn over na lang ni architect yung susi sa owner sa bahay, and sasabihin, ma'am, tapos na po yung project, ito yung susi, pwede na kayong pumasok, may occupancy permit na lahat, and wala nang problema si owner. That will be the role of the architect in design build by administration, and it guaranteed maximum price. So you must clear it in the contract, no, being an owner representative. So walang talo ang arkitekto, no, sa design build services by administration and the guaranteed maximum cost dahil naka-fix yung fee natin. While in regular contracting, pwedeng matalo ka dahil naka-built-in ang profit mo doon sa iyong kontrata, no? So yun yung pagkakaiba sa ating services with the owner. And then of course the timelines, no, you have to provide timelines with your contract and your program. Okay, so design build documentation under UAP document 207, you must execute to the owner an owner architect agreement for the design build by administration, no, as what I discussed. And then you have to submit the owner with the complete sets of plans and specifications, architect's construction program, the project estimated cost for construction and bill of materials, no. Dito ginagawa natin ang bill of materials rather than the bills of quantities. Bakit? Dahil administrador tayo ng owner at yung owner ang bibili ng mga materyales. Dito ngayon critical ang pag-submit sa owner ng bills of materials. While in contracting, in regular contracting, ay sinasubmit ng contractor usually bills of quantity. So ano ang difference, no, ng bills of quantities? Sa bills of quantities, hindi nakikita ng owner at hindi nakikita ng contractor ilan yung bag ng semento, ilan yung length ng bakal, no? Ang nakalagay doon is scope of works, and na-factor in na ang profit and overhead cost. While in design build by administration, this is the time that we provide the owner for the bills of materials, because it is the owner who both, no, who buy the materials for the construction of the project and not the contractor. Okay, so yun ang pagkakaiba doon sa regular contracting. And then of course, schedule of labor, you have to provide the owner schedule of labor para alam ng owner kung paano niya pagsasahurin, no, ang mga empleyado. And schedule of equipments, ano yung mga equipment sa kailang rentahan. And workers employment contract, dahil ang employment ng empleyado is direct with the owner, magkakaroon ngayon ng employment contract ang mga empleyado sa owner as a project employee. And of course, you have to prepare payroll vouchers, no, dahil ikaw ang mag-release ng payroll, no, and salaries and wages ng mga empleyado in behalf of the owner. And then of course, safety program, and napaka-importante sa lahat yung special power of attorney. Kasi pag wala kang special power of attorney in behalf of the owner, no, pwedeng ma-question ang iyong authority later on, no, representing the owner. While in the contractor contracting, no, in the regular contracting, the owner execute a contractor's design build agreement with the contractor, and the contractor is required to submit a bonds and the contractor's owner's insurance. The contractor is obliged to submit also a complete set of plans, specifications, program of works, the same of schedule of labors, schedule of equipments, construction contract with the owner, general conditions. Govern ang contractor ng general conditions, while in design build by administration, the architect is not governed by the general conditions of contract. Then statement of completion, at the end of the project, the contractor will submit a statement of completion, while the architect in UAP 207 is not submitting because he is representing the client. And then at the completion of the project, the contractor is also required to submit a guarantee bond, no, or a warranty bond in exchange of the release of this retention money. While in UAP document design, build, administration. Walang retention si architect doon dahil hindi naman siya contractor in behalf of the employee. No? He is representing as an agent of the owner. And then of course, safety program, payroll vouchers, workers employment contract, subcontractors contract, kung may mga subcontracting on the part of the contractor, and of course, the one who will sign the agreement in behalf of the contractor, there must be a special power of attorney, and also a secretary certificate if it is he or she representing the corporation or the contractor. Okay? So, the question now is, are you an architect or are you a contractor? Kasi maraming mga arkitekto na sinasabi nilang, architect ako and I am engaged in the design build services. I design with the owner, I contract my own project, but that is not the same as what is provided, no, in our UAP document 207. No? Majority of the architect or many of the architects now is engaged in a regular contracting rather than the design build contracting as required under our UAP document 207. So thank you, and that ends my presentation today. So good afternoon to all. Any question?
So thank you very much. So we'll be accepting questions right now. So check na sa chat dito, may questions. So good afternoon, sir.
Yes.
So do you have this question? Sir, how about merong mga change order and alterations, the design that may cause variation on the level of project or the total project cost, that it count on the 10% when you are contracting on guaranteed maximum cost? If not, how does this settle? Thank you. This is from Anonymous.
Oh, ganda ng name niya, no? Anonymous. First time ko narinig yung name niyang Anonymous. Okay, that is why I'm telling everyone in UAP document 207, design build contract, there is no such thing as the award of variation and change order in during construction work, because the architect is exercising as an agent of the owner and not a contractor. No? So whatever deviation in designs, whatever deviation in designs that affects the works, diretso na naman yung work, no, na mangyayari dahil nga the architect is the agent of the owner, no? So i-instruct na naman yung architect sa mga empleyado kung anong gagawin, no? In with regards to the design build in a guaranteed maximum cost, so wala ring change order na mangyayari dahil it's the same performance ang gagawin naman ni architect, no, as an agent of the owner. Ang pagkakaiba na naman doon sa purely administration and in a guaranteed maximum price, the contract of the architect to the owner in guaranteed maximum price will be fixed in based on the agreement of the architect and the owner during the time that the design was finalized. Okay? So ngayon, kung may requirements, for example, si owner, that there is an additional requirements na hindi nasama doon sa pag-design ni architect, that will be a change order ni architect doon sa kanyang design. No? Babayaran siya na additional doon sa design, and dahil mag-i-increase ang project estimated cost. So kung nag-charge si architect doon sa design niya ng 10% sa estimated cost, mag-increase ang estimated cost, mag-increase ang fee ni architect doon sa kanyang design fee, doon ang kanyang change order. But on the construction stage, being an administrator, magdadagdag lang naman yon doon sa guaranteed maximum price ni architect na lalabas no? And pagdating naman doon sa profit margin noon, either the architect will be paid of the 10% fixed naman yon, no? Yung 10% niya doon, unless it is stated that for example, doon na sila mag-base sa savings, for example. But of course, kung ako yung arkitekto, hindi ako mag-base doon sa guaranteed maximum cost na built-in, no? I will be charging separate of my fee, no, to the guaranteed maximum price, no? And well, since na you will exercise due diligence in the performance of the work in the design build in the guaranteed maximum price, siyempre gagawin mo naman siguro yung lahat na kailangan. You will lower down the cost na matapos, dahil of course you have to run also for the savings, no? Kasi ang savings sa guaranteed maximum cost contract with the owner, 50-50 kayo ng owner doon sa savings, no? Ang alagaan mo dyan is hindi ka lalagpas doon sa parameters, kasi pag lumagpas ka doon sa parameters, you will shoulder the excess of the cost you submitted to the client in that guaranteed maximum amount, no? So yun.
Is there anybody else na do you have questions? So another question from Anonymous. When the architect is an agent of the owner, if ever there's an accident during the implementation of the project, is the architect liable?
Yes, if it is default of the architect, no? Kasi being an administrator, you have to exercise due diligence. That includes the safety, no, of the employee. No, of course, solidary liable yung owner, because the owner is the principal, no? Of course, liable ang owner, at the same time liable yung architect. No? Primarily liable ang architect dyan dahil siya yung nag-administer, no? But of course, the owner is damay. Other questions?
Meron pa pong isa. There's a question from Anonymous. From Architect Liora Subosa. So, sir, how much usually yung acceptance fee bago mo i-accept yung project, like you told us na bago ka mag-sketch?
Okay. The contract, no? As we define the contract, hindi ko na sinama sa presentation ko, but usually the contract is the meeting of the minds, no? Alam natin yan kadalasan. The contract is a meeting of the minds. So kung saan kayo nagkakaintindihan ng kliyente, so that will be your agreement, no? But of course, it is the architect usually who submits his or her proposal, no? Halimbawa, since you execute naman for that project, sasabihin mo na more or less by per square meter, wala ka pang drawing, no? And you talk with the client and sinasabi mo sa client, for example, na more or less ilang square meter ba ang tinitingnan nating area ng project, no? And pag sinabi ng client na, for example, 300 square meter, so you compute muna yung per square meter, no, on sa factor in natin, no, na for example pag residential project is between 22,000 to 25,000. So you compute it in that way muna, and then for example charge the owner muna ng 10% as an acceptance fee or 15% as an acceptance fee. No, kasi kung ang owner naman is talagang he is relying to you, and he gave you his or her trust and confidence to be his architect, why hesitate to give your acceptance fee, no? Kasi kung ang owner naman ay very hesitant to allow you to charge an acceptance fee, abay matakot ka na, no? Ibig sabihin nun, hindi ka nakasigurado kung talagang nasayo yung full trust and confidence ng kliyente at kung babayaran ka niya o hindi, di ba? Acceptance fee nga, hindi siya magbabayad eh. How much more pag na-serve mo na ang iyong instrument of service na nag-provide ka na ng drawing, no? Baka sasabihin niya sa sunod, sige architect, papacheck ko muna sa husband ko, and then later on makikita mo baka pinapagawa na doon sa iba, No? So that's our security kasi. No? Kasi ang sa ating code, di ba? So sabihin natin na upon signing of this agreement is the owner will pay ganito. Kapag hindi siya nagbayad upon signing of this agreement, matakot ka na, no? Maalarma ka na sa sarili mo na hindi kasi makapagbayad sa akin ng pag-execute ng agreement eh. How much more when I provided the services to the owner, di ba?
Questions from yours truly, sir.
Hmm.
I know this is a very sensitive topic because regarding it would be naive to think na this is not na maraming arkitekto yung they are both practicing architect and contractor.
Hmm.
So or call themselves contractor.
Hmm.
Pero some of them I know meron silang two separate company or two separate sister company na yung isa exclusively for construction contracts at yung isa as an architectural firm. Then they have two separate receipts, I think. Yung sa architectural firm and the construction firm. So they are both practicing architects and a contractor in the same time, and knowing that there's a conflict of interest between the two business, ano po yung masasabi mo dito?
Okay. Walang problema no if the architect is wanted to become a contractor at the same time. Kasi sa pagiging contractor niya hindi nakalagay sa requirements that you are an architect or an engineer, no? Maraming mga businessmen contractors that not technical person, just hiring professionals, no? They are engaging professionals para mag-oversee sa kanilang work. Ito nga ang sinasabi ko even in my lecture a while ago na majority of the architects doesn't realize that engaging in design build by administration or design build in guaranteed maximum cost is a win-win practice rather than contracting. Kaya sinasabi ko kanina, naka-fix na yung fee mo sa owner eh, i-administer mo na rin yung project. Walang losing dito. Bakit? You're not gaining profit in exercising or engaging in the private in the practice of build by administration. While in contracting, 'di ba? Magkakaroon ka ng losing of profit doon because pagka yan ay hindi mo na manage ng maayos, naka-built in ang profit mo doon sa iyong kontrata. Okay? While in the design build by administration under UAP document 207, kahit na mismanage mo ng kaunti yung project, yung fixed fee mo is pwedeng nakuha mo na partly, no, during the performance of the progress of the work. Kasi separate fee mo yon na hindi kasama doon sa construction estimated cost na owner ang naglalabas ng pera. While in contracting, hindi nila nare-realize, no, yung ibang mga architect na they have to use their own money muna bago sila kumita, no? So hindi nare-realize yan because siguro hindi nila naiintindihan ng maayos kung ano ang tinatawag na design build contract sa isang arkitekto at ano yung manner ng contracting. Kaya nagiging mindset nila is, ang design build nila is they will design at the same time they will build, no, from their left pocket, they will just transfer to the other pocket, no? Babayaran sila ng kliyente sa design nila, ilagay nila sa kanang bulsa, kukontratahin nila sa owner, ililipat nila yung pera nila sa kabilang bulsa at gagastusin. While in UAP document 207 by administration, wala ka nilalabas na pera doon. Ina-administer mo lang ang pera ng kliyente being in fiduciary capacity, but the client will pay paying you 10% or 7% by administration, 10% by only guaranteed maximum price. And take note, sabi ko nga, sa contracting, ang profit margin sa contracting is only 10 to 15%. Eh kung nag-guaranteed maximum cost ka sa owner, naka-fix yung 10% mo, while in contracting, you are thinking of losing money or either winning money with the same amount of profit. While in guaranteed cost, no, sa ating mga architects is maliban dun sa fixed fee mo na 10% naka-fix na yon, if there's savings in the work, no, as a result of your administration, hati pa kayo ng owner sa savings. So saan ang winning situation doon, no? It is with the contracting or using design build by administration and design build in a guaranteed maximum price, no? So siguro hindi lang nila na-realize, no, kung ano yung true essence and principle nitong design build by administration, no? And nag-i-engage karamihan sa contractor. Plus, of course, in the practice of profession, mababa yung tax mo sa BIR. Mas malaki ang tax ng contractor. Bakit? May contractor's tax pa na separate na 2%. No? Compare doon sa architects lang in the practice of profession. So, hindi nila nare-realize yun.
And as a follow-up question, sir, paano naman yung mga architects na walang lisensya na mag-contract and yet is doing the same, not using the guidelines of professional practice? So what are yung mga to be put it bluntly, yung consequence of such action?
Well, ang problema dyan is talo yung kliyente, no? As you know na, kung yan ay, for example, kontratista na wala naman siyang PCAB license, no, from the Philippine Contractors Accreditation Board under RA 4566. Pagka tinakasan nila yung kliyente later on, kahit magreklamo pa yung kliyente doon sa PCAB, wala namang i-revoke sa kanila, no? Hindi rin tayo nakasigurado kung how PCAB will act expeditiously, no, to prosecute those persons who has no PCAB license, no. But of course, kung for example, they are engaged in design at the same time, dahil design and build yan, so pwede natin silang i-call yung attention and we can file cases, no, illegal practice, no, sa PRC, for example, in terms of design, no. Pero pag sa construction, it should be on the part of the Philippine Contractors Accreditation Board. So pwedeng dalawang agency, no, ang pag sasubmitan mo ng iyong complaint, no. So, you file in illegal practice for the design, and you file another case, no, sa PCAB for contracting without the necessary contractor's license. Of course, you can file also to the local government unit na wala silang business permit, for example, to engage in contracting, no? So yun siguro yung magiging remedy natin dyan, no, para ma-minimize, no, yung mga illegal practices na ganyan.
Sa discussion natin, there are two additional questions. So from Anonymous, sir, how can be an architect by administration differ from project manager if both are hired by the owner, or the architect can do both with adjustment on the fee because most likely the work nature is the same?
No, the architect cannot do both, no, kasi although the nature of the work of the design build by administration is the same as contractors management, if you will eliminate design, then you are now engaged in the construction management. Kasi design build by administration, kasama yung design, at the same time you administer in behalf of the owner privately. Okay? Ngayon, if you are going to eliminate the design and you will just be engaged by the owner to administer the work with your team, then you are now engaged in the practice of construction management.
From Architect Joel Gonzaga, there are owners that do as design into a particular project just to collect design shopping. How can an architect charge him if the owner says just give us ample time to talk? to my wife,
Hmm.
husband for approval of preliminary design
Hmm.
submitted when wait for a reply. How can we avoid such mindset of some owners?
Okay. You know, under our code of ethics, we are prohibited to submit design without first executing a written agreement. No? Kung tutuusin, pagka nag-provide ka ng design without first executing a written agreement and without first charging a fee, that is a violation of our code of ethics. No? Kaya lang, sa ngayong panahon, ang ating PR POA no, ay nagiging board of examiners. Wala ng regulator. No? But generally, if your chapter, for example, will act on this, dapat ma-prohibit din natin yung mga colleagues no, that submitting services without the benefit first of the written agreement with the owner. Kasi pag titingnan natin, sino bang talo? Di ba? If you're not executing a written agreement with the owner and just pay first my acceptance fee before I will provide my designs to you, sinong talo? Di ba tayo mga arkitekto? Okay? The problem that I see in that situation is uh, pagka hindi na bigyan ng attention yan ng ating mga chapters, for example, area C4 no sa area of Panay, that all architects members of your chapters should act in the same way. No, kasi ang problema diyan, kung ikaw gusto mo nga maningil ng acceptance fee before you provide services but others are not, then there's a problem. No, kailangan we should be in unison. No? Para pagka may mga kliyenteng kahit saan pumunta na arkitekto, pareho ang sagot. Kung ikaw naman arkitekto tapos tatanggapin mo, nireject ng isa dahil hindi pumirma ng service agreement at ayaw magbayad ng acceptance fee, pag pumunta doon sa ibang arkitekto, tinanggap, what will happen? No? So it should be in unison. Kaya nga tayo may code of ethics eh. No? Kaya tayo govern ng code of ethics kasi dapat pare-pareho ang ating actions. No? Pero kung yung Committee on Ethics, for example, natin, pinapabayaan natin yan, sinong talo? Individual architects. Okay?
I would like to take note, no? Bago mo i-accept yung design or do anything else, charge mo muna yung acceptance fee na para sigurado.
Yes, of course. No? Kasi si client naman, if he is really willing to get your services, di ba? Bakit tayo niyo magbayad? Not hindi siya pipirma. So, ibig sabihin, pag hindi siya pipirma, there is an intention that the client is only doing.
Okay. So, another question from Architect Gerald Arevalo. Sir, what is the right time to submit design contract to the owner? Before design phase or after design approved by the client?
Well, before you engage in before engagement with the owner, no? Ito ang palagi kong ina-example sa lahat ng lectures ko. Pagka ikaw ay nakasalubong ng doktor sa daan, no? At sinabi mo sa doktor na, Dok, alam mo, palagi akong nakakaramdam ng ganito sa katawan ko. Ano ang sasabihin sa iyo ng doktor? Sige, punta ka sa klinik ko bukas. No? Pagpunta mo sa klinik ng doktor, bago ka lumabas, sisingilin ka. Diba? So, ganun dapat tayo. No? In fact, in foreign countries, no? Pag nag-consult ka doon, no? Ang gagawin muna ng mga architect na mga foreigner, no? Tatanungin muna yung kanilang secretary or finance, nagbayad na ba to? No? Pag hindi pa nagbayad yan, hindi ko kakausapin. Singilin nyo muna sa kakausapin sa conference room. Ganon. No, tayo, ang nature natin mga Pilipino, maawain, di ba? Tapos later on, tayo na yung kaaawaan. Di ba? Dahil nag-provide ka ng mga sketches mo, no? And then later on, the client go to other architect, humingi na naman ulit ng sketches, no? And then later on, pinagtahi-tahi na. And then pumunta dun sa illegal practitioner doon, pinagawa yung lahat. No? So sino talo? Tayo, di ba? So that's the point.
The best answer. So the best answer is kung magtatanong regarding sa design, punta ka muna sa office ko.
Oo, kausapin.
Para masingil na maayos.
Kasi palagi ko nga ina-advise doon na don't meet client doon sa mga coffee shop, no? Kasi masyadong cheap naman pagka yung mga kliyente is mini-meeting mo sa mga coffee shop. Although, you cannot preclude client minsan to go to your office, no? Minsan may mga kliyente na ayaw pumunta sa opisina and they just want you to meet somewhere, no? So kung the client wanted you to meet somewhere, meet them to any hotel, no, kahit sa lobby. That is more formal than bringing client to the Starbucks and Coffee Bean, no, on whatever coffee shop there in Antique and Iloilo. No? So you better meet client, no, at the hotel lobby in cafeterias, for example. No? Ang price ng coffee sa hotel at sa Starbucks, Coffee Bean, pareho lang naman. Diba? Maganda pa yung ambience and professionally, the client will appreciate that you are meeting them in a good place rather than a coffee shop.
So, is there additional questions? Okay. So far, wala na sir na mga, if you have questions, kindly please, we will be, if not, we will proceed with the awarding of certificates. There's a note here from our president. Please don't forget to promote his book. Okay. Okay. So, sir, we are promoting. Actually, I have a copy of this book already. Yung RA 9266, Architecture Act of 2004, with Q&A. With notes and cases.
May available sa Ilong.
May available na
Sa Ilong kay Architect Jonar.
Yes, meron tayong copy kay Architect Junar. Architect Junar.
So if you have, you can chat with Architect Jonar. If you have, if you wish to have a copy of the book. So it would be best siguro na if you have other questions na it wasn't really discussed with this seminar, it would be best that you buy the book para mak-clear nyo talaga and you have a reference of all, you have this black and white reference talaga. You can show to your clients later on if they have questions para maging clear. Okay, so if kung wala na tayong questions, I will proceed with that.
You can send me also questions to my messenger. So masagot naman ako pagka nakita ko may mga questions, no? So kung hindi ko masagot kaagad, ibig sabihin meron akong importanteng ginagawa. But I try my best, no, na masagot ko sa aking messenger yung mga questions. Okay? And don't forget to subscribe na rin sa aking YouTube channel, no? Sa mga hindi pa nakapag-subscribe, marami tayong mga lecture.
Subscribe na ako doon.
The Coffee Talk with Maestro. And well, kung may mga consultancy services then with your projects, I'm also accepting consultancy services, no? For example, quantity surveying and project management.